This is my very specific question for you, right? Is that you're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
There are all these different scenarios. I obviously don't think that that's what I'm doing.
I mean, to be clear, I don't think that's what you're doing either. I'm just interested in how you get to a world willing to submit to permanent authoritarian rule.
Well, but
hey, YouTube world, Harvest is Plenty. Thanks for stopping by to check out the video. So we are surely living in some strange times, but as the scripture said, by their fruits you shall know them. Regardless if they act Christ-like or speak like the Lamb, their actions are those of those who are part of the dragon's family. That's Peter Thiel. He's the founder of a company called PayPal, a company called Palantir, which is connected with the military-industrial complex. And he also was one of the earliest or first outside investors in the company called Facebook. And that investment made him very rich. And Peter Thiel is working to bring in this beast technology. Even though he denies it, Trump already told you guys that this is the golden age. And, he's working with the CEO from SoftBank. I did a video about that, Project Stargate. They're investing $500 billion to get this artificial intelligence up and running. A lot of people are involved in it. Elon Musk, there's DARPA, and there's a lot of other companies that we don't even know exist that are working in the backgrounds and in the shadows to bring all this stuff to fruition. But the technology hasn't caught up with their ambition as of yet. And so they're still spinning their wheels and they're frustrated. And that's because God has made it so. The Lord still sits on the throne and he's still in control. And he's looking down laughing at them. He's causing derision amongst them. Because the fullness of the Gentiles, it hasn't ended as of yet. And the restraint is still restraining. And until the restraint is removed, and until the fullness of the Gentiles have ended, then they will not get their wish. See, they know they can't get to heaven, so they want to make their paradise on earth and bring heaven down to them. And that's why they're working so hard 24/7. But don't be deceived. They study the Bible. As you will hear Peter Thiel quote scripture, they actually study their Bible probably more than most Christians. Because they're trying to bring forth prophecies and the apocalypse before the end time. Or before the appointed time. They're trying to move ahead of the schedule. And that's what they're up to. I could talk about this all day, but I'll just cut back to the video so you guys can listen to the interview and hear what Peter Thiel has to say. I'll be back with more content. I love you guys. May the good Lord continue to bless you and your family.
But the world of AI is clearly filled with people who, at the very least, seem to have a more utopian, transformative, whatever word you want to call it, view of the technology than you're expressing here, right? And you were mentioned earlier the idea that the modern world used to promise radical life extension and doesn't anymore. It seems very clear to me that a number of people deeply involved in artificial intelligence see it as a kind of mechanism for transhumanism, for transcendence of our mortal flesh, and either some kind of creation of a successor species or some kind of merger of mind and machine. And do you think that's just all kind of irrelevant fantasy? Or do you think it's just hype? Do you think people are trying to raise money by pretending that we're going to build a machine god, right? Is it hype? Is it delusion? Is it something you worry about? I think you would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would
this is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in this.
Should the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And so, you know, it's always, I don't know, you know, yeah, transhumanism is this, you know, the ideal was this radical transformation where your human natural body gets transformed into an immortal body. And there's a critique of, let's say, the trans people in a sexual context, or I don't know, a transvestite is someone who changes their clothes and cross dresses. And a transsexual is someone where you change your, I don't know, penis into a vagina. And we can then debate how well those surgeries work. But we want more transformation than that. The critique is not that it's weird and unnatural. It's, man, it's so pathetically little. And okay, we want more than cross-dressing or changing your sex organs. We want you to be able to change your heart and change your mind and change your whole body. And then Orthodox Christianity, by the way, the critique Orthodox Christianity has of this is these things don't go far enough. Like that transhumanism is just changing your body, but you also need to transform your soul and you need to transform your whole self. And so,
right. But the other, wait. I generally agree with what I think is your belief that religion should be a friend to science and ideas of scientific progress. I think any idea of divine providence has to encompass the fact that we have progressed and achieved and done things that would have been unimaginable to our ancestors. But it still also seems like, yeah, the promise of Christianity in the end is you get the perfected body and the perfected soul through God's grace. And the person who tries to do it on their own with a bunch of machines is likely to end up as a dystopian character.
Well, it's... Let's articulate this.
And you can have a heretical form of Christianity, right? That says something else.
I don't know. I think the word nature does not occur once in the Old Testament, and so you know, if you and there is a word in which a sense in which the way I understand the Judeo-Christian inspiration is it is about transcending nature. It is about overcoming things. And, and the closest thing you can say to nature is that people are fallen, and that's the natural thing in a Christian sense, is that you're messed up. And that's true. But, there's some ways that, with God's help, you are supposed to transcend that and overcome that. And,
right. But
and if you just
present company accepted, most of the people working to build the hypothetical machine god don't think that they're cooperating with Yahweh, Jehovah, the Lord of hosts. They think that they're building immortality Ross, on their own.
Yeah,
right?
We're jumping around a lot of things. So
yes.
Again, the critique I was saying is they're not ambitious enough.
Right.
From a Christian point of view, these people are not ambitious enough. Now, then we get into this question: well, are they?
But they're not morally and spiritually ambitious enough.
And are they still physically ambitious enough? And are they even still really transhumanists? And this is where, okay, the cryonics thing, that seems like a retro thing from 1999. There isn't that much of that going on. So they're not transhumanists on a physical body. And then, okay, well, maybe it's not about cryonics. Maybe it's about uploading, which, okay, well, it's not quite. I'd rather have my body. I don't want just a computer program that simulates me. So that uploading seemed like a step down from cryonics. But then even that's, it's it's part of the conversation, and this is where it gets very hard to score. And I don't want to say they're all making it up and it's all fake, but I don't think
you think some of it's fake.
I don't think it's fake. Implies people are lying, but it's I want to say it's not the center of gravity.
Yeah,
and so there is there is a cornucopian language. There's an optimistic language. A conversation I had with Elon, a few weeks ago about this was he said, we're going to have 1 billion humanoid robots in the U.S. in 10 years. And I said, well, if that's true, you don't need to worry about the budget deficits because we're going to have so much growth. The growth will take care of this. And then, he's still worried about the budget deficits. And then this doesn't prove that he doesn't believe in the 1 billion robots, but it suggests that, maybe he hasn't thought it through, or that he doesn't think it's going to be as transformative economically,
right,
or that there are big error bars around it. But yeah, there's some way in which these things are not quite thought through. If I had to give a critique of Silicon Valley, it's always bad at what the meaning of tech is, and the conversations, they tend to go into this microscopic thing where it's like, what are the IQ ELO scores of the AI, and exactly how do you define AGI, and we get into all these endless technical debates, and there are a lot of questions that are at an intermediate level of meaning that seem to me to be very important, which is like, what does it mean for the budget deficit? What does it mean for the economy? What does it mean for geopolitics? One of the conversations we had a few recently was you and I had was does it change the calculus for China invading Taiwan, where if we have an accelerating AI revolution in the military, is China falling behind, and will this, and maybe on the optimistic side, it deters China because they've effectively lost, and on the pessimistic side, it accelerates them because they know it's now or never. If they don't grab Taiwan now, they will fall behind. And either way, this is a pretty important thing. It's not thought through. We don't think about what AI means for geopolitics. We don't think about what it means for the macro economy. And those are the kinds of questions I'd want us to push more.
There's also a very macroscopic question that you're interested in that, will pull on the religion thread a little bit here. You have been giving talks recently about the concept of the Antichrist, which is a Christian concept, an apocalyptic concept. What does that mean to you? What is the Antichrist?
How much time do we have?
We've got as much time as you have to talk about the Antichrist.
All right. Well, I could talk about it for a long time. I think there's always a question. How do we articulate some of these existential risks, some of the challenges we have, and they're all framed in this sort of runaway dystopian science text. There's a risk of nuclear war. There's a risk of environmental disaster, maybe something specific like climate change, although there are lots of other ones we could come up with. There's a risk of, bioweapons. You have all the different sci-fi scenarios. Obviously, there are certain types of risks with AI. But I always think that if we're going to have this frame of talking about existential risks, perhaps we should also talk about the risk of another type of a bad singularity, which I would describe as the one world totalitarian state. Because I would say the political solution, the default political solution people have for all these existential risks is one world governance. What do you do about nuclear weapons? We have a United Nations with real teeth that controls them, and they're controlled by an international political order. And then something like this, is also what do we do about AI? And we need global compute governance. We need a one world government to control all the computers, log every single keystroke to make sure people don't program a dangerous AI. And I've been wondering whether that's sort of a going from the frying pan into the fire. And so the atheist philosophical framing is one world or none. That was a short film that was put out by the Federation of American Scientists in the late 40s. Starts with a nuclear bomb blowing up the world, and obviously you need a one world government to stop it, one world or none. And the Christian framing, which in some ways is the same question, is Antichrist or Armageddon. You have the one world state of the Antichrist, or we're sleepwalking towards Armageddon. One world or none, Antichrist or Armageddon, on one level are the same question. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on this topic, but sort of one question is, and this was a plot hole in all these Antichrist books people wrote. How does the Antichrist take over the world? He gives these demonic, hypnotic speeches, and people just fall for it. And so it's this plot hole. It's this daemonium.
Right. It's implausible.
It's a very implausible plot hole.
Right.
But I think we have an answer to this plot hole. The way the Antichrist would take over the world is you talk about Armageddon nonstop. You talk about existential risk nonstop. And this is what you need to regulate. It's the opposite of the picture of Baconian science from the 17th, 18th century, where, the Antichrist is like some evil tech genius, evil scientist who invents this machine to take over the world. People are way too scared for that. In our world, the thing that has political resonance is the opposite. The thing that has political resonance is we need to stop science. We need to just say stop to this. And this is where, I don't know, in the 17th century, I can imagine a Dr. Strangelove, Edward Teller type person taking over the world. In our world, it's far more likely to be Greta Thunberg.
Okay, I want to suggest a middle ground between those two options. It used to be that the reasonable fear of the Antichrist was a kind of wizard of technology. And now the reasonable fear is someone who promises to control technology, make it safe, and sort of usher in what, from your point of view, would be a kind of universal stagnation, right?
Well, it's more. That's more my description of how it would happen.
Right.
So I think people still have a fear of a 17th century Antichrist.
Yes.
We're still scared of Dr. Strangelove.
Right. But you're saying the real Antichrist would play on that fear and say, you must come with me to avoid Skynet, to avoid the Terminator, to avoid nuclear Armageddon.
Yes.
And I guess my view would be, looking at the world right now, that you would need a certain kind of novel technological progress to make that fear concrete, right? So I can buy that the world could turn to someone who promised peace and regulation if the world became convinced that AI was about to destroy everybody, right? But I think to get to that point, you need one of the accelerationist apocalyptic scenarios to start to play out, right? To get your peace and safety Antichrist, you need more technological progress. Like, one of the key failures of totalitarianism in the 20th century was it had a problem of knowledge. It couldn't know what was going on all over in the world, right? So you need the AI or whatever else to be capable of helping the peace and safety totalitarian rule. So don't you think essentially you need your worst case scenario to involve some burst of progress that is then tamed and used to impose stagnant totalitarianism? You can't just get there from where we are right now.
Well, it can
Greta Thunberg's on a boat in the Mediterranean, like protesting Israel. I just don't see the promise of safety from AI, safety from tech, even safety from climate change right now as a powerful, universal rallying cry, absent accelerating change and real fear of total catastrophe.
I mean, these things are so hard to score, but I think environmentalism is pretty powerful. I don't know if it's absolutely powerful enough to create a one world totalitarian state, but man, it is.
I think it is not.
It is
in its current form.
It is. I want to say it's the only thing people still believe in Europe. They believe in the green thing more than Islamic Sharia law, or more than in, the Chinese communist totalitarian takeover. And the future is an idea of a future that looks different from the present. The only three on offer in Europe are green, Sharia, and, the totalitarian communist state. And the green one is by far the strongest. In
a declining, decaying Europe that is not a dominant player in the world.
It's always in a context.
Right.
And then I would, I don't know, we had this really complicated history with the way nuclear technology worked. And, we didn't really get to, a totalitarian one world state. But, by the 1970s, one account of the stagnation is that the runaway progress of technology had gotten very scary, and that, Baconian science, it ended at Los Alamos, and then it was, okay, it ended there, and we didn't want to have any more. And, when Charles Manson took LSD in, the late 60s and started murdering people, what he saw on LSD, what he learned was that you could be like Dostoevsky, an anti-hero in Dostoevsky, and everything was permitted. And of course, not everyone became Charles Manson, but in my telling of the history, everyone became as deranged as Charles Manson.
But Charles Manson did not become the Antichrist and take over the world, right? We're ending in the apocalyptic.
No, but my telling of the history of the 1970s is the hippies did win, and we landed on the moon in July of 1969. Woodstock started 3 weeks later, and with the benefit of hindsight, that's when progress stopped and the hippies won. And it was not literally Charles Manson.
Okay, but I want to stay with the Antichrist just to end, right? And you're retreating. You're saying, okay, environmentalism is already pro-stagnation and so on. Okay, let's agree with all that.
I'm just saying,
but we're not living under. We're not living under the Antichrist right now. We're just stagnant, right? And you're positing that something worse could be on the horizon that would make stagnation permanent, that would be driven by fear. And I'm suggesting that for that to happen, there would have to be some burst of technological progress that was akin to Los Alamos that people are afraid of. And I guess this is my very specific question for you, right? Is that you're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history? Would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
There are all these different scenarios. I obviously don't think that that's what I'm doing.
To be clear, I don't think that's what you're doing either. I'm just interested in how you get to a world willing to submit to permanent authoritarian rule.
Well, but again, there are these different gradations of this we can describe, but Is this so preposterous, what I've just told you, as a broad account of the stagnation that the entire world has submitted for 50 years to peace and safetyism? This is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety, and we've submitted to, the FDA regulates not just drugs in the U.S., but de facto in the whole world, because the rest of the world defers to the FDA. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission effectively regulates nuclear power plants all over the world. People, you can't design a modular nuclear reactor and just build it in Argentina. They won't trust the Argentinian regulators. They're going to defer to the U.S. And so it's at least a question about why we've had 50 years of stagnation. And one answer is we ran out of ideas. The other answer is that something happened culturally where it wasn't allowed. And then the cultural answer can be sort of a bottom-up answer, that it was just some transformation of humanity into this sort of more docile kind of a species, or it can be at least partially top-down, that there's this, this machinery of government that got changed into this stagnations thing. I think something like this. Nuclear power was supposed to be the power of the 21st century, and it somehow has gotten off-ramped all over the world on a worldwide basis.
So in a sense, we're already living under a moderate rule of the Antichrist in that telling. Do you think God is in control of history?
Man, this is again like I think that there's always room for human freedom and human choice. These things are, or at least where we are today, these things are, they're not absolutely predetermined one way or another.
Right. But God wouldn't leave us forever under the rule of a mild, moderate, stagnationist Antichrist, right? That can't be how the story ends, right?
It's attributing too much causation to God is always a problem. If I don't know, there are different Bible verses I can give you, but I'll give you John 15:25, where Christ says, "They hated me without cause." And so it's all these people that are persecuting Christ have no reason, no cause for why they're persecuting Christ. And if we interpret this as a ultimate causation verse, they want to say, I'm persecuting because God caused me to do this. God is causing everything. And the Christian view is anti-Calvinist. God is not behind history. God is not causing everything. If you say God's causing everything,
you're scapegoating God. But God is behind. But God is behind Jesus Christ entering history because God was not going to leave us in a stagnationist, decadent Roman Empire, right? So at some point, God is going to step in.
I am not that Calvinist, that's
not Calvinism, though. That's just Christianity. God will not leave us eternally, staring into screens and being lectured by Greta Thunberg, right? He will not abandon us to that fate.
There is a great, I don't know, for better and for worse, I think there's a great deal of scope for human action, for human freedom. If I thought these things were deterministic, you might as well, maybe just accept it. The lions are coming. You should just have some yoga and prayerful meditation and wait while the lions eat you up. And I don't think that's what you're supposed to do.
I agree with that. And I think on that note, I'm just trying to be hopeful and suggesting that, in trying to resist the Antichrist, using your human freedom, you should have hope that you'll succeed, right?
We can agree on that.
Good. Peter Thiel, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.